Okay, so the first one that they give me is what percentage of kids have the internet or use the internet. So I think I'm going to use the letter I for internet. If you want to use O for online, go ahead and use O. Then the other piece of information that they give us is this idea of a profile on social networking sites. So I used S for a profile on social networking. You could just use P if that makes more sense to you. So I for internet, S for profile. I'm using S because of the social networking situation. Okay, they gave me P of I. What percent of 12 to 17-year-olds use the internet? 93. Which means that the percent of kids that are not on the internet is what? 0.07. Because these two things add to 1. For any tree diagram, like the root, adds to 1. Now we're going to add on branches. And when I do this, I can make my life a little bit easier by remembering that these are going to be conditional probabilities based off of the root they're coming off of, or the root they're attached to. Okay, they say of the kids that are online, 55% have posted to social networking. So S given I is 0.55. This has to stay the same, so my only option for this other event is S complement. So the probability that they don't have a profile given they're on the internet is what? 0.45. And now those add to 1. Well, they only gave us 2 percentages this time, but what's the probability that you have a profile on a social networking site given you don't use the internet? 0. They didn't need to give us this one because those are mutually exclusive. You can't not be on the internet and have a social media profile. It requires internet. Which means the probability that you don't have a profile, given that you're not on the internet, is 1. Now, when they ask you to do a tree diagram, this is how far you take it. You do not have to do these intersections. A lot of the time you'll need to answer a question, but for the actual tree diagram, you're not obligated to do this last step. So we can leave that tree diagram just like that. What percent of teens are online and have posted a profile? Well, they're asking us about I and S. Well, it's a good thing that we review the formula for that at the beginning. It's the probability of I times the probability of S given I. And you have both of those things. So this is P of I times P of profile given internet. Okay, what's the probability of internet? 93. What's the probability of social media profile given you have the internet? 55. You multiply those together, I believe you get 5115, which means that if you randomly select a teenager aged 12 to 17, about 51% of them will have the internet and a social media profile. You're hanging in? Okay, next one. Now we're going to be on the internet and go into like a YouTube site. So video sharing sites led by YouTube are popular destinations on the internet. Let's look at only adult internet users aged 18 and over. About 27% are 18 to 29. Okay, there's my first one. About 47%, just kidding, 45% are 30 to 49. And the remaining 28% are the oldies but goodies, 50 or older. No, it's up. No, I gave it to you guys and I don't know where it went. And I have this one that I'm not using. I stole this one from Miss Henson, so I still need one.
No worries, yeah. Is that one working? Okay, what was it? What's
It, so I unplugged it for the long weekend, and when I came back and plugged it back in, it has a light on it that when you turn it on normally turns green.
Right.
The light doesn't turn on. It like starts, the fan starts up like it's going to start, and then just turns off. Okay. Then it says, then it's going to give us more percentages. Okay, so I'm thinking at this point, I'm going to have a young group that's 18 to 29. So I'm going to call that Y for my young group. And then I have a middle-aged group that's 30 to 49. And then finally, I have the oldies, which is 50 plus. So in this case, I'm not using complements because they've broken it down into 3 different categories. So they're not saying aged 18 to 35 and 35 and older. They've given us 3. So that's the only reason why we're not doing 18 to 29 and 18 to 29 complement, because there's 3 different situations. So that means down here, when I go to set up my routes, I'm going to have the probability that you're a young internet user, and that's going to have 2 outcomes. Then you're going to have the probability, oh, sorry, I didn't put my probability on there. The probability of a young user is 27. Then you have your 2 outcomes. Probability that you're a middle-aged user is 45. You'll have 2 outcomes. And the probability that you are an older user is 28, and that will have 2 outcomes. That represents 100% of adults 18 and older. You add those together, you get 100%. So before I even read those other probabilities, I know that this is going to be the probability, a conditional probability, given they're young. So to make my life easier, I can just go through and automatically fill in the conditional part of my probability statements for each of these. If that's not your jam, then feel free not to do that when you are doing this on your check for understanding. Okay, up at the top, we're going to know, or they're going to tell us about the users that go to a video sharing site. So I'm going to call V video sharing site, because it's important to define the letters that we use. So smashed up here, next to my Y, M, and O, I'm putting V for video sharing site. The project finds that 70% of internet users in the young group have visited or gone to a video sharing site. So V given young is 70%, which means the probability that they do not go to a YouTube-like site, given they're young, is 30. just kidding, 51% in the middle age goes to the sites. So V given middle-aged is 51, which means does not visit given middle-aged is 49. And then last, 26% of the oldies visit, which means how many do not? 74. That makes sense to me. Of all of the age groups, the one with the largest proportion that go to video sharing sites is the young group. And the smallest proportion is the old group. So that would make sense. To me, at least. Okay, then it gives us one question below. Given that the person has visited a video sharing site, find the probability that he or she is in the young group. So see, first of all, if you can fill in what they're asking you for the conditional probability. Take like 30 seconds to see if you can write in what they're asking you. Okay, they are asking you for young given visited. So this is this formula. Young given visited is young and visited over visited. So I'm going to start with those symbols. Y and V over V. Okay. Well, this gonna be a big old fraction. So young and visited is easy. That's gonna be 0.27 times 0.70. Are you guys okay with that one? Yes. Yes, because that's this formula. So these two formulas are the ones that you use throughout this whole assignment. It's either one or the other. Are we okay there? Okay. These are interchangeable. I can write probability of A and B or probability of B and A. So according to that, I don't have anything out of place here. Unless I'm crazy, they look exactly the same to me. Do they look out of place to you? Right. Well, I'm plugging them in the order that they are. Oh, so it's this one you're having an issue with. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but these are interchangeable. So these can also be interchangeable. If it's B and A, this can still be probability of B times the probability of A given B, or probability of A times probability of B given A. Okay, so in the top, you have 0.27 times 0.07. But in the bottom, you need P of V. And to find P of V, you have to pull all of the intersections that include V. So that would be this branch, and this branch. Whoopsie. So you have to pull all of those intersections. And I'm going to write that underneath. I just wanted to show you first. If I want to know P of V, these are the numbers that I have to pull. I have to pull all of the situations with a V. So here, how I'm going to get P of V is I'm going to multiply, and I'm going to write out the symbols too. I'm going to write out the numbers and the symbols. 0.27 times 0.07 plus 0.45 times 0.51 plus 0.28 times 26. Because those are all of the intersections. This is YN visited. This is middle age and visited. This is oldie moldy and visited. So to find P of V, you have to pull all of the intersections that have V. Then I think that I would type it into my calculator like a big old fraction. To get the fraction button, you do green button and Y equals. It's your first option. Or you could simplify it, whatever works best for you. Are you guys calculating? Was that a yes? Was that a yes? Was that a yes? No, we don't got no yeses, teacher. Okay, I'm getting. Should I wait? Yes. Look, I just plugged mine in as a big old ginormous fraction. See? Don't be cheaters. Okay, I got 3847.
Wait a second.
Yes, no? So you're okay? I mean, as okay as you can be. Was that a yes? Okay. Ready for the last one?